Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We've got our final installment of our season preview for our position group, and we saved maybe the best for last, but I don't know if Phil Green would agree with me on that one. We're going to talk about the back seven on defense. We're going to have a whole lot of new faces. Bank last year was pretty rough. We lost a lot of guys to the NFL. Is there any chance our back seven can be better than it was last year?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, now when you throw in back seven, you're coupling the linebackers with the DBs. I actually thought the linebackers were pretty good last year. When they limit them to like 3 on the field,
Yeah.
You put 4 out there, then it's about the ugliest thing I'd ever seen. But limit it to 3. I thought Browning had a good year. I thought Warner had a really good year. Justin Hilliard, I thought was really good for who he is. So I think that the linebackers were dramatically better than the DBs were last year. So I think there's a differentiation there between linebackers and DBs, even though I know we're coupling them as back seven. But I thought there was a difference there. I really do.
Do you agree with that, Nevada?
Yeah, I wasn't as down on the linebackers as a lot of people were. I'm with Bank. I thought our linebackers were okay. I have to say, though, I'm excited about our linebacker group this year, and I think that our linebackers are going to show some athleticism and speed and violence that we haven't seen in a little bit. And, as good as Werner and Justin were, and these guys are next level athletes, and I'm really excited about what the linebackers can bring. And like I said, we can get to the other parts of the defense areas that I'm not as excited about. But as for the linebackers, I'm very excited to see them this year, and I can't wait to see them on the field.
All right, so we'll start on the linebackers. We'll start with you, Nevada. Give me some names that you've been hearing, through spring ball, through the summer. Who are you looking at as the guys that are going to step up and fill the? I mean, Pete was a second-round pick. Barron was a third-round pick. So it's a pretty good, nice draft pedigree. Justin Hilliard was a priority free agent. All NFL guys. Who are some names you're hearing that are going to step up and take those spots?
Well, I put on a nugget earlier this week, but I think heading into the fall camp, I think the pecking order's kind of established. I think they've got Terrata Mitchell at the will. They've got Cody Simon at the Mike, and they've got Craig Young at the Sam. And I think those are 3, pretty good linebackers that they're inexperienced, but they're athletic as heck. They may not know where they're going, but they'll get there fast. And I'm excited about seeing them. I've got some concerns about Mitchell. I'm really high on Simon, and Young's the wild card. Now behind them, you've got guys like Gant and Tommy Eichenberg. I really like a lot. Kayvon Pope. You've got a transfer coming in from USC. We'll see how he fits into the equation. But I don't want to gloss over the Cody Simon thing. Cody Simon is the next great linebacker at Ohio State, and I really think he's got that type of potential. I think he's got all-American type of potential. When you look at this kid, he looks like he was sculpted from whatever planet linebackers are born on, and he plays the game very, very aggressively and very smartly, always in the right spot. The other players are just raving about him, and so he's my all-in pick for breakout star of the year, and a guy that is going to become a household name for Ohio State fans in the fall is Cody Simon.
What about you, Bank?
Yeah, I love Cody Simon, and I agree. Everything I've heard has been pretty A+ as well. I thought the high school film was really good. I get why he didn't get a lot of time last year. It was limited schedule, a lot of experienced guys ahead of him that had played a ton of football. But I think he could have played last year if there had been injuries or COVID could have struck the linebacker group. I think he could have played. Yeah, and I agree with that. He would probably be my favorite guy in that group. And I'm sort of like, I need to see it. Okay, I've heard over, we can go back to Bam Mitchell or Bam Childress. I heard he was going to be the greatest player ever. And these I got to see it. But Cody Simon's the one guy that I probably don't need to see it out of him because I believe it. I believe in him. Craig Young sounds good. Yeah, we'll see. Mitchell, Gant, Pope, they've been around forever. Those guys, you think that they're young guys. They're not. They've been in the program 100 years apiece. Never done a thing yet. Never, so we'll see. I've always been high on Tommy Eichenberg, but he's been hurt a lot, and Kirk, you played at Ohio State. The best ability to have is availability. You got to be ready to go.
Mhm.
So Cody Simon is one. I'm really looking forward to seeing him. I think the way Nevada said, I think he brings something a little different, even though I really liked Werner and Browning was pretty good, got better every year. But yeah, I'm excited about Cody Simon too. I really want to see him on the field. I think he can bring a lot to the table.
Yeah, I think he's got exceptional athletic ability. I think he's got a violence. I'm hoping that he's the next guy that, plays a little bit as a freshman and turns it up big time as a sophomore, like James Laurinaitis did, like AJ Hawk did. It was like that second year they basically became All-Americans, and they were basically 3 and out type of guys. I'm hoping he can be that guy. Looks like that guy, and you're right. A lot of these guys that have been around for a while, it's sometimes they're like, man, I wish I could play, or I got guys in front of me that are a little better than me, but now it's their shot to, if they want to have a career doing this, I mean, it only takes one big year. Like Will Allen didn't start till his senior year. Then he ended up playing in the league for like 14 years. So, you only need one shot, but yeah, the linebackers are considering there's talent, but outside of Cody Simon, I think there's a lot of question marks. So, all right, now we're going to move on to the secondary, just because this is going to be everybody's favorite topic, because last year was something else. Start with you, Bank. Is there anything positive that you can glean coming into the season in the secondary, or are you still somewhat down on a lot of these guys coming back?
Well, I think you get back to there's an age-old saying, like, the good news is we got everybody back, and the bad news is we got all them guys back. So, I really, I go by what I see and what's on the field. I love the potential like everybody else does, and the stars and all, but what was on the field last year was pretty bad, pretty rough. I did like Nevada's guy last year. He kind of was the first to call out Lathan Ransom, and Lathan Ransom did not play much, and there they throw him in a huge semifinal game against Clemson, and he was really good in that game. And then you get to the Alabama game and you don't play him. You play those 4 linebackers, which, we've talked about that enough. So I really like Lathan Ransom, and I think he's a guy that could pop with that extra year. He did get some good experience last year, played in, big game against Clemson. So I like Lathan Ransom. Then you've got like Marcus Williamson, Marcus Hooker, Banks. I think we know who those guys are. Now, can people get better? Yes, people can absolutely get better. Do guys go from being average or below average to being stars? It doesn't happen very often. So we'll see. There's a ton of young guys. I'd love to know if like J.K. Johnson and Hancock, could they possibly crack that depth chart this year? Or is that too much to ask of true freshmen? Now, we've seen true freshmen on the field at Alabama in the defensive backfield, so I know it can be done. But I don't know. We're going to have to see. I mean, they have to be better than what they were last year. And, they better be. Cam Brown's another one I want to mention, another wild card. What those Achilles injuries are, Kirk. I mean, they're killers. And then you're talking about the position on the field that requires side-to-side movement, change of direction. And we saw Tough Borland never made it back. Master Teague last year, dramatically different. Well, now you're trying to play corner. 10 months removed from an Achilles, we'll see. I mean, it's asking a lot at that position, so we'll see. I think there's just so much unknown, like you said, and then proof will be in the pudding when we see the games.
Yeah. Nevada, what are your thoughts on the back end?
Well, I'm a little bit more bullish. I've been hearing some really good things about Seven Banks, and I think he had a really, really good spring. A really productive spring. Went up against some of the best wide receivers in the nation and played well against them. I talked a little bit earlier this week about Legend Gavazos, who I really like a lot. And I think he's a guy You know, he could be a guy that, you know, he was highly regarded coming out of high school. You know, the rating services were a little bit mixed on him regarding, you know, is he an athlete? Is he, you know, what kind of a football player is he? I mean, I thought he was outstanding in the spring, and I think he's a guy who's going to, you know, he was great in the spring. I'm hearing good things about him over the summer. If he can stay healthy and he comes into the fall, you know, we'll have to wait and see it. But I think he could be the Lathan Ransom guy of this year in terms of stepping up, coming out of nowhere, playing and answering some big questions for Ohio State. And then, you know, Banks. So you've got J.K. Johnson and Jordan Hancock, who I like a lot. But then you get wild cards like, you know, Ryan Watts, who Ryan Watts to me has got to be a safety just because he's so darn big. I couldn't believe when he made that interception in the spring game who that giant cornerback was. I mean, he's the biggest cornerback I've ever seen in my life. And you know, Ohio State loves the kid. They insist that he can play out there. And if he can, he just brings another dimension because he's just huge. And I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see Cam Martinez, Court Williams back healthy. You know, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a fun year on the defensive back. We're going to be young but talented in the secondary. You know, and you know, guys do get better, and when we see guys come out of nowhere every year for Ohio State, you know, we've seen guys that are, you know, fourth and fifth year guys that have not done a lot, then stepped up and played well. Ohio State, for whatever reason, when I talk to them, they're not like super down. They're not, but you know, I take my cue a lot from them, but they're not super down about their prospects in the defensive back, so they know something. And I guess it's just, you know, we'll know a lot more once fall camp starts. Once the guys report, once we've really got a chance to have a good handle on what we have, and we'll have some early reports for Buckeye Scoop fans. But I mean, I'm excited. I mean, and I'm cautiously optimistic about what we have because I think it's going to be better than we might think.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if these guys can clean up their technique and frankly play harder. Like I felt there were times where guys kind of walked into fist fights, you know, like there are times I watched Sean Wade. He just looked like he was disinterested. I think he's a great kid and everything, but it's like, you know, when you're a guy who's touted as like a potential first round pick corner, like receivers want to come after you. Like the kid, like Freifogel from Indiana, he wants to come after you. Like Devontae Smith, those guys all want to eat your lunch because if you're allegedly a first round corner and they can, you know, get off on you with you covering you, then what are they? You know, it's like, and so. But there were just times where like I'd watch our guys, and it was like they were either confused or they were just too chill or they were too cool for school. And it just didn't seem like they were as locked in as they needed to be, you know, and you'd see it some of the blown coverages, you'd see it in just some of the effort. Like frankly, some of the effort I didn't think was great. And yeah, I think that it's gonna be real interesting because I mean they gotta get that turned up. I mean, you know, they're switching some stuff around in the back end, and I mean it's going to be a very, very interesting training camp and first couple of games. Bank, do you have any thoughts on what Nevada said? Anything on Ryan Watts? Ryan Watts is humongous. He reminds me of, he doesn't have the ability of Cromartie, but he's like the only corner I could think of that's that big.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on any of those guys?
I think he's a safety. We'll see. I mean, he's huge and he's long. I know that. So, you know, maybe there's a place for him in there, you know. I did want to touch on your point that guys got to play harder and they were kind of chill and they were kind of, you know, and I actually, you know, we think a lot alike on a lot of things, which means you probably need to redo your thinking on things, but from hanging out with you,
it probably means I'm right.
Yeah, I don't know. But from hanging out with you at camp, we seem to agree a lot. And that means you might need to rethink your approval ratings here. But I asked somebody who should know that very question. And what I was told, and it made sense to me, was that group collectively lost confidence. And when you lack confidence, you know, if they put you out there at left tackle too soon and you're not ready, you're scared and you're tentative, dude, you're going to look awful. And it's not because you're not trying. It's not because you're dogging it. It's not because you think you're too cool. It's because you're not confident in your ability. And I think that group last year got stung in the Indiana game. And there were just times when they lost their confidence. And boy, that's tough to play out there in that spot. When you don't think you can do it, you probably can't. So I think I don't think it was lack of effort. And I was told that it was not. And the person who told me that I trust, but that it was those guys collectively lost their confidence. And that's a tough position to play, man, when you're playing a little tentative.
Did they say anything they were going to do to remedy that? Because for me, I was never a guy like a coach never could like give me confidence. Like confidence is something you got to have on your own. Like, and I'd always tell some of these guys, man, like you got to fake it till you make it. Like if you don't think you're the baddest MFer on the field, then these coaches aren't going to. These other players aren't going to. So it's like you might be a redshirt freshman. Like my first game, I got prolonged action, and we played Wisconsin in 04. Played a guy named Erasmus James, who's the best defensive end I ever went against. He was a first round pick, and I was a redshirt freshman. The starter, Tim Schaefer, got destroyed 3 straight series to start the game, and they said, "Kirk, you're in." And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, I mean, he's like, this is the best guy in the country, and like, you know, you better figure it out because
Yeah.
you know, nobody's coming to save you. And if that means more time on the field after practice, more time in the film room, more time in the weight room, whatever. I mean, you got to figure out a way to get your own confidence up. Like for me, it was the weights. It was, you know, get stronger, get better at film, better technique after practice. Like, you know, you got to figure it out, man, because no one's coming to save you in that aspect. But did they have an answer for you on that? Like,
No, I should have asked. I wish I would have pressed it now. You make me feel like an idiot now that I didn't press
you're
it.
fine.
And I wish I would have, but no, I didn't get what the remedy is. The remedy, I think, is like you say, is when you stop people. When you line up and stop Garrett Wilson, you line up and stop Chris Olave, it's like, holy crap, I can play this game. I am good. You know, and that's the one thing when you're a DB at Ohio State. I mean, every day in practice, your confidence, it's either coming up or it's going down, because you're not going to play guys like that ever unless you play Clemson or Bama. There ain't nobody like that in the Big Ten. So
absolutely,
you know, you have the opportunity to become confident. And I think it's when you're, you know, the film is better, the technique is better, you're stronger, you're faster, and you go out and you cover Chris Olave for a 2-hour practice, and you walk out there thinking, I'm pretty darn good. I'm better than I was last year. I think that's the remedy, but I really wish I would have asked.
You got any thoughts on that, Nevada? Because I got another thought after that.
Yeah, no, I just think that what you got to, you know, we talked about this a lot before last season, and the three of us specifically talked about this, which was you know, Kerry Combs' first year calling a defense. And I think it showed. You know, he looked like an inexperienced defensive coordinator back there, and sometimes I think that manifested itself in terms of, you know, players unsure, players not playing fast, you know, players, you know, looking like they're going through the motions or whatever it was. And you know, just like players get better, I think coaches get better, and I think Combs is going to be a lot better for having had that experience. And without giving away the goat, what I can say is Ohio State learned an awful lot in that game against Alabama, an awful lot. And I think you'll see a lot of those same concepts implemented this year. And you know, I think when you play against a team like that, when you see teams like that operating, I think you've got to try to take some of the best things that they do. And I think Ohio State's going to do that this year. And I think Ohio State will be better for having done it.
Yeah, and to be fair to Kerry Combs, like last year, like for first year coordinator, it was terrible because you don't have spring ball, you don't have training camp, so like you don't really get a chance to run the show. Because a lot of times when you're a new coordinator and you've got new coaches around you, you have scrimmages on the weekends. You have a spring game, so you can kind of get into the flow of what calling game is like. He didn't have any of that. I mean, it was like, you know, they kept getting jerked around. So you know, I can't give the kids a pass because every kid in the Big Ten was dealing with the, all right, we got a season. All right, it's canceled. All right, now we don't have a season. Okay, we got a game on Saturday. Okay, it's canceled because they have a breakout or an outbreak or whatever. I mean, I don't know, but I just there was just something to last year with our back end guys where some of them just looked like they were too cool for school, and I think that a lot of those guys they have massive ability. Like Seven Banks is a first round pick in a lot of mock drafts right now, which would be great, be amazing. I mean, I think he has that ability, but you know, that's a gift and a curse. Cause like with Sean Wade, he was projected top 15 pick coming back. And if he would have sat out the year like Jamar Chase did, he probably been a first round pick, but
no doubt.
he played,
No doubt.
I mean, nobody cost themselves more money by being a good Buckeye and being a good teammate. Cause he would have gotten murdered by our fan base if he would have sat out. And so we could have won a national championship. If him and Wyatt Davis would have sat out, they're both first round picks.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, it's almost silly. Like Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons, these guys that all set out, none of them got penalized for it. They all went. I mean, Jamar Chase went like what, third or fourth or fifth overall, whatever, to the Bengals, and
Yeah, sure.
I mean, fresh body for a year. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, Kerry Combs, as back when we were at camp, he was really good to us, and he always stops and talks
He's
to
the
us.
best.
And
He's
yeah,
the
I mean,
absolute best. I mean, as a human being, as a person.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
and I
you
work
root
with him.
for him. You root for that guy. You want that
Yeah.
guy to be the defensive coordinator of the year in college football, because you're not going to find a better person than Kerry Combs.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I worked with him in 2012. Like, it was funny. He was the third cornerbacks coach. We had Taver with Urban, and Taver left and went to Arkansas. We had Bill Sheridan for about a month. Sheridan went to Tampa Bay he went to Tampa with Shiano. But I mean, like, Shiano calls him and says, "Hey, do you want to be the defensive coordinator for the Buccaneers?" Like, of course he's gonna leave.
Gotta take it.
And then Kerry Combs shows up. Like Tim Hinton got Kerry Combs an interview with Urban, and Kerry did great. I mean, it was, he brings energy. Like, you can't doubt his work ethic. So and plus, like, if he's feeling some heat, which he might, if we have another year like this on the back end, like, I think he's, he'll turn it up, and these guys will play hard for him, because he's put a lot of guys into the league. He's got a lot of guys paid, and a lot of those guys, as soon as they left his tutelage, they fell apart. So sometimes it's amazing when guys are really good under Kerry, and then they go first round or whatever, and then they fall apart because they don't have his discipline and his structure and his coaching. So, it's going to be interesting. Like, I mean, everybody's dying to see what the back seven is going to look like, because it's going to be so new, but I'm excited to see it. Like, I mean, there's a lot of young guys a lot of opportunity out there. These guys that are showing up to camp, and there's a lot of open spots. I mean, it's time for some of these guys to go win a spot, and they got to play really well to achieve that spot, because they're not going to play better receivers. It's like you said, like, when I was a senior, I had to go against Cam Hayward and Vern Golston every day in practice. So it's like, if I wanted to take a day off, I was going to get just murdered. I mean, I was going to get destroyed, because those guys were, Cam was a first round pick. Vern was like the 6th overall pick. He came out the year I came out. And so, I mean, you can't take days off at Ohio State, or you're going to get destroyed, and like, whoever our number 2 cornerback is going to have to go against Garrett Wilson every day. So it's like, that if Olave is our number 1 and he's got 7 banks, and the number 2 guy's got to go against Garrett Wilson, he's probably the 2nd best receiver in the country. So, and then you've got all the other receivers, like, in every, you get out of number 5 and you're like, oh God, I got number 5. It's Mart, it's Jackson Smith and Jigba, or Marvin Harrison Jr., or Emeka Ibuka, and you're just like, holy cow. So our DBs are going to get better by design, just because of Brian Hartline's room.
Another thing I want to bring up, Kirk, is last year, the depth was not what it needed to be back there. There were some recruiting errors by Tabor, good friend of mine, got to call it the way it is. There were some recruiting errors there. You missed Jordan Battle. But now this year, like, they couldn't sub out last year. You weren't going to tell Sean Wade, you either play better or you're getting benched this week. And he knew that wasn't going to happen. There was nobody they were going to put in last. Well, I don't think it's that way this year. You start, Legend Cavazos, Ryan Watts, are the freshmen ready to go? Lathan Ransom. I think this year you better be good, or you're going to be sitting. Where last year they weren't going to bench 7 banks. They weren't benching Sean Wade. It wasn't going to happen. So, but I don't think that's the case this year. I think there'll be some better depth where kids can challenge kids for jobs. And you better be good, and you better be confident, or you're going to sit.
Yeah, and if you're a freak show, you can play as a freshman at corner. Corner's not that. I mean, corner tech, like, from a playbook and scheme wise, is not very hard to play. Now, from a technique, it's the hardest position in the world to play. But I mean, in terms of like teaching them, hey, you go cover that guy. Now that's easy for me to say, but to do the proper technique and actually do it is a lot harder than you go cover that guy. But it's not like it's some super intricate thing when it's, you got that cat, I got that cat, you guys are 2 deep, whatever, 3 deep. I mean, it's
Pat Surtain played as a true freshman at Alabama.
Janoris Jenkins. I mean, we had Malcolm Jenkins played nickel in 05. Malcolm was awesome as a nickel in 05. I mean, guys can do it. And it's like, when there's opportunity, if you got a guy who's good enough and athletic enough, like, I don't think it's a terribly tough position to play. Now, I mean, technique wise, it's the hardest position on the entire field, but like, learning it is just, if you're athletic enough, and the biggest thing, like you said, the confidence is everything at corner. Because I mean, that is like, it's like being a closer. It's like being an offensive tackle. you know, because like, you know, you see guys like in NFL games that they lose their confidence and all of a sudden it's like a feeding frenzy. Like that poor cornerback in 2000, what was it, 18 Haskins, that Michigan game, and they just kept throwing
Oh
on
my
him.
God.
Oh my God. It
Yeah.
was like every play
Right.
they're like, find the fish, man. And he
Right.
was the fish that
Right.
day. And they just kept picking on him because, like, I mean, there's nothing the guy could do to stop it. So, but yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be a big training camp. So, we'll wrap this real quick. Nevada, you got any closing thoughts for us?
No, I just think it's like I said, I've been around Ohio State football for a long time. I've never been so excited for a fall camp to get started and to have kind of a normal training camp and a normal run up to the season. And that's, you know, we've got Big Ten media days coming up here. So, I mean, this stuff is right around the corner and it can't get here quick enough for me. I'm ready to go.
You got the Wiseman ready for some scrimmage updates, I hope.
Oh, they're ready and with it. They can't wait too. Everybody's poised and ready to go.
Yeah, I can't wait for the scrimmage updates. Those are always the best. Bank, you got anything else to close us out with, my man?
No, I'm working on my, conference previews for all the conferences and over and under win totals this year because we're back to normal this year with, the 12-game season. So, yeah, working on that stuff. I'll start putting those out here real soon.
Okay. I can't wait for that. And we got golf next Tuesday. We get to hack it up in Youngstown Country Club.
Yes,
so
we do. And then the live Q&A afterwards on YouTube. Live.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we got to do
Yeah.
it live.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that'll be good. Well, I appreciate you guys. You guys have a great night. This has been the Scoop World Order.